Hey students, it's time to learn the best opening for white at this point in the course. This is an opening that is going to allow you to be an extremely aggressive player or an extremely positional player. It's up to you how you want to play it. My goal is to convince you to actually play it aggressively. And that's because today, more than you guys learning this new opening, which by the way is very reliable, easy to learn, it is still played at the top level. I personally don't like to play against it, it's uncomfortable to me, but more than you learn in this opening, I really want you to dominate the concept of opposite side castling attack. And this is something that you guys have to know regardless of your style, regardless of the opening that you choose, because anytime your opponent castles to the opposite side, it is an aggressive war declared. You have to know how to attack, because if you don't, they're going to attack you first and you're going to be done. So let me tell you what I mean. This, guys, believe it or not, is the opening that I'm going to tell you about. Now, those of you who already know it, you might be thinking, oh no, this is the old London system, so boring, or it's not boring, but I've been playing it already, I know what to do. Well, hear me out first, because when we incorporate this idea of the opposite side castling, this could be really interesting. Again, if you learn how to get this far, and it only takes a few moves, you could continue. Let's say my opponent castles to the king side. You could just castle to the same side, and you get a very solid position, very nice to play. So you could just bring the rooks to the center and find the right time to break on e4 or to break on c4. This is just a nice position. Now, my objective is for you guys to try it out by castling to the opposite side. So if my opponent castles here, I want to castle to the opposite side. If he castles to the queen side, I'm going to castle to the king side. We're not going to do it right away because there's a trick I need to show you in order for this to work successfully. Why do we want to castle to the opposite side? Well, if you castle to the same side, guys, these pawns are meant to protect you, so you don't want to push them away. Now, if we castle to the opposite side, you could use these same pawns to go after this king. And if you get there, you're going to not only create some weaknesses, you're going to open up that king for your pieces to attack. So there are two main objectives. Let's say they do a few bad moves here. Let's say they just go rook d8, and I start pushing my pawn, push my pawn. Of course, it's not going to be like this, guys, but just to show you my point. Once I make contact here, not only am I, if he takes, look, this king is exposed, but more importantly, my pieces now have lines to come over and attack that king. So compare that king to my king, right? So this is the main idea. But even if my pawns don't get that far, even if they just get captured, that's great for me. As a matter of fact, if I could, I would just get rid of these pawns right now. Why? Because I have very nice files for my rooks to come over and attack. And that, combined with this bishop and the queen, the other bishop, the knight, is going to allow me to do a very nice attack on the king. So I'm telling you this so that you know that these pawns, we don't really want them. If we could just give them away, that's welcome. Because we know that these kind of games, guys, they don't make it to the end game. Opposite side castling, if you guys start to attack, you do it the right way. It doesn't really matter if you have two more pawns or not, because you're not gonna make it to the end game. Now, looking back at this position, guys, there's one golden rule we can never forget. And that golden rule is that whoever gets to the other player's king or the other player's castle first, that player is going to get the initiative and they should win the game. So you want to make contact with these pawns before he makes contact with your pawns. And even if they do make contact, you have to know how to react in order to stop their attack. And that led me to the other idea. The main idea when you attack is that we have to pay attention to the pawn structure. This one, where none of the pawns have moved, is the best one. And we have to know how to attack it. That's why whenever you're being attacked, you don't want to push these pawns. Many people get nervous, they just push the pawn, and that's the worst thing you could do. If you're going to attack this pawn structure, you know you have to make contact on g6. If instead this pawn happened to be on h6, well, we have to maybe do something like pawn to h4, pawn to g4, and make contact on g5. And you know what? You actually many times don't need the h pawn. You just need to know that you have to make contact on g5. That way, if he doesn't take you, you take them, and if they take you, well, lines are already being opened. And then finally, guys, if instead they had this pawn pushed, well, we have to make contact with the h pawn on h5. If we just send this one now, he's gonna get stuck. So this is the one that we know is going to allow us to make contact fast and open up lines. Now, before we talk more about this, guys, let's go over how you get to this position. So I'm going to start with the pawn in front of the queen. And by the way, let me actually put this back. Since this is a system, it's very easy to memorize. You just need to know where your pieces go. That's it. So let me now, again, go back. Then I need to develop my kingside knight, and it only makes sense to put this knight on f3. Then the bishop, we know he goes to f4. And by the way, guys, this is officially the London system. If you put this bishop somewhere else, it's not going to be the London system anymore. And at the same time, let me tell you, if you had done bishop f4 first and then knight f3, it doesn't really matter that much. As long as you know where your pieces go, you should be fine. Now, let me do it the right way. So knight f3 first, then bishop f4. And I'm doing something standard for the black pieces just to show you my point, but they could do many different things. And for the most part, your system should work against anything. So bishop e7, we know the bishop goes to d3. That's why we put the pawn on e3. So bishop goes to d3, and they say they go knight c6. This knight typically goes to d7, but let's put it there, just so that you know, guys, that sometimes they want to come over to attack your bishop. That's a very powerful bishop. So c3 comes handy not only to prevent that, but we have to do it anyways to make this available for the queen. Now let's say they go b6, knight b to d7, bishop b7, and finally queen to c2. If you look deeper, guys, into the London system, sometimes you're gonna see this bishop go to e2, the queen also sometimes could go to e2. I just want you for now to try it this way. Eventually, you could accommodate it and change it to the way you like it the most. Now, I got this far. Again, if they castle, you guys could castle to the same side, play a quiet game, but we are talking today more about castling to the opposite side. Now, I already told you that the key is to get to the other king before they get to you. So if I castled right now, guys, they're going to immediately start attacking me. There's no exception. Once you get to a certain level, this is how it goes. Castle to the opposite side, we have to attack and get to the other king first. So I don't want them to attack me first. So what do? Well, the secret is to get a head start first. So before you commit to this side, I'm going to start attacking. Now, at this point, my opponent, doing a5 doesn't make much sense because there's no king here. So what is it going to be attacking? And that's going to give me some extra moves. So if he does something like queen d7, I'm going to get another move in. Let's say they go now, I don't know, rook e8. Now, at this point, guys, is when we have to pay attention to how we attack. If we just do pawn to h6, that's a very bad move. Because we know if they take, that's good for us. But what if they just go g6? That's it. This pawn is acting as a shield. We cannot attack. So we have to leave this pawn here and bring the other pawn to break on g6. So I'm going to castle now. And even if he gets to attack me, he's just behind. I'm going to bring my other rook. Sometimes, guys, you could just push the pawn. We don't really mind it if he takes it. That's what we want. We want this file clear for my rook to come in. But just to show you my point, let me bring my rook over here. Let's say he keeps pushing, g4. And now look, even if he makes contact right now, we just need to remember not to take. We have to create a blockade here. So now he cannot enter. He could continue to attack, but he's going to take some moves to open my king up. If I had taken, guys, that's it. He's going to take the initiative. He's going to be attacking the king. He's going to be opening up lines to attack me. So you cannot forget that. If by any chance they get to you, you need to blockade, okay? Wait for them to push, and then you create this blockade. Now, let's say that happened. They want to continue bringing more pieces. Now, I'm going to just finally get there. g5. Now, the way I put it, I realized this knight has nowhere to go, and even if he moved, we could take on h7. Let me actually make this a little bit more realistic. Let's say this knight is here, and this queen is right here, right? So let's say it is my turn, and I finally go g5. The knight is going to move to safety, and of course I cannot take, but my point, the reason why I'm showing you this, is for you to know that this is how we attack. We just go pawn to g6, and now they cannot ignore my pawn. If they just push up, well, I take this pawn, and I'm opening this file. If they push this one, I take the other pawn, and the point is that I'm opening lines for my rooks to attack. What most people are going to do here, guys, is they're going to take first, and then they go with h6. But they are already done. I have my two rooks, my bishop, my other bishop, my queen, my knight. so many, oh, and the pawn, so many pieces on the king side. So now I could just sacrifice my bishop. I could even sacrifice the rook, right? So I sacrifice, if they take, now not only can I do g7, I could even just do, I think, yeah, rook h6 followed by rook h1 going down there. There's so many things, or even g7 followed by rook h8. There's so many things here to finish them off. Tactics are in the air, you just need to put them together and finish them. Again, if you look at this king, compare with my king, trust me, you don't want to be in their situation right now. So guys, this is pretty much what you get. And this is again attacking this pawn structure. The next few lessons is going to be me showing you games and showing you more ideas on how to attack with a different pawn structure. I'm going to show you games, we're going to go over the different ideas, and I'm going to help you guys master this. After you learn it, if you never want to get into these positions, that's fine, you don't have to look for them, but just know they're going to find you. So if you find someone really aggressive, they might want to do this, you need to know how to react. Now, going back to this position one more time, let's say they castle to the other side. Well, this is going to be even easier because I have this pawn here, which is a leverage pawn, and he's going to help me get to them faster. So I could just do b4, a4, and look, this pawn structure, I'm going to make contact on a5. So b4, let's say they do something like h5, a4, and now look, a5. I already made contact, that's it. Now, he cannot push forward. Taking here is just going to help me. So what could he do? Let's say he goes, I don't know, maybe, what could he do? So maybe knight h5, right? So attacking my bishop and so on. Well, now I'm going to just take on b6 and I'm opening my file for the rook. So he takes back and I could easily, guys, just castle to bring my other rook. I could just continue to attack. The point is, this king is already easy to attack for you. So at this point, just use the tactics that you know. So guys, this is a foundation to not only how to play this opening, you could start using it right now either aggressively or more positionally. It is completely up to you, but just know that with this lesson and the next few lessons we're going to have, when you finish them, you're going to be very comfortable when attacking the king on opposite sides. So if you haven't, subscribe right now because I really need you to not miss the next few lessons. This is a process, you have to get them all together to get the whole thing. So with this said, I'm going to leave it here, guys. And in the future, you know you're going to see me using this opening, the way you get more ideas. But I think this is enough for you to start using it. Again, just before I let you go, d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6. Now, let's say, by the way, let's say they do something like, okay, bishop f4, e6. Let's say that after you do e3, trying to develop your bishop, they go something like c5. You're going to continue with your system, but just pay attention. You know your moves, just use them wisely. Maybe doing bishop d3 right now doesn't make sense. He could easily attack me. So I could just do c3 first, then I do bishop d3. If he attacks me now, I could go back here. Now, let's say they just go pawn takes, I take back, bishop e7, or look, they could do bishop d6. You see, it's not going to be as nice as I painted it, but just use common sense. Here you could go back, you could put the knight in the way, or you could take. It's completely up to you. Let's say you took, and then you go knight b2 d7, they castle, queen c2, bishop d7. Now here, guys, like I said before, this opening is nice because even if you don't feel comfortable castling to the other side, you could still castle here, you get a nice game. This is move number 10, you're going to be fine. And that's exactly what I wanted to point out here. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to castle to this side because they could easily bring their rooks to a semi-open file and you know it's not going to be comfortable. I'm not saying this is the case, but whenever something tells you it's not safe, just be smart and play it quietly. Alright, so that's the cool thing about this. It's going to allow you to master this idea of attacking on opposite sides, but sometimes when it's not possible, you're not going to be left with nothing. You could just castle to the safe side or to the same side and continue to play chess. So with that said, guys, I'm going to leave it here. I'll see you in another lesson and we're going to talk way more about attacking the king on opposite sides. So until then.